I'm getting my first cup of coffee for this morning, and I'm hoping that you are too. So I love these lives, and I'm so grateful for YouTube creating these lives to give us an opportunity to talk. And I have been working hard to support as many people as possible on the grief journey, to provide grief support that works, to provide grief support that's more than just a place to talk about your grief. I do believe here at Grief Inspired, we have a phrase around here that we say you have to get your grief out. You need to talk your grief out. You need to write your grief out. You need to find ways to release the grief, the emotions, the thoughts, the feelings, all of the things that are going on. But I think that there is not enough positive ways to help us with our grief. It is very easy to become stuck in grief, to become stuck in the uncomfortable, to become stuck in feeling sad. And we can, over time, as we grieve, get really comfortable in our sadness. We get comfortable in the pain because we know it so well. And after a few months, you start to realize that you don't remember what feeling happy was actually like. That all you know and all you remember is how sad grief makes us. And so that is a place where a lot of us can be. And let me know if that is where you are. But I also want to help in moving forward. So here at Grief Inspired, we talk about moving forward and being inspired. We want you to move forward in grief, because if you are not moving forward, you are stuck. And being stuck in grief is a very hard place to be. None of us wants to be stuck in grief, but sometimes we find ourselves there. And sometimes we don't know what the path forward is. How do I get out of this? I remember being stuck in grief and being really sad and depressed and just generally like I didn't have any interest in anything. There was no joy in my life, and I was going about my life and I was doing all the things that I had to do. I was going to work, I was cleaning the house, I was doing the things that I thought I needed to do, that I had to do, but I wasn't really living. And I was doing that because I didn't know that there was another way. And what I want you to know is that there is a way. There is a way to move you forward. And the way we get unstuck from grief is to find anything that moves us forward. Now, what I do here at Grief Inspired is give you as many options as I can to help propel you forward. And as you start moving forward, you start to understand your grief. So the first thing is really to understand grief, what it is, how it shows up. You might be noticed, or you might be aware that nobody really tells you how to grieve. And suddenly grief happens to you, right? Death happens and grief ensues. And so nobody teaches us. What do we do when our spouse dies suddenly? What do we do when we've spent years taking care of a parent who then dies and we're left looking at their hospital bed? What do we do when we hold an infant in our arms and then they suddenly disappear because they're gone? What do we do with drug overdose? What do we do with shootings? What do we do when the people that we love are taken from us? Oh, good, Jennifer. I love this. Good. So you're already focusing on moving forward, right? And so what are the things that you can do to help move you forward? Now, tomorrow, I am having a 4 Steps to Release Guilt webinar. If you would like an invite to that, this is a way to help you move guilt forward. There are so many things in the grief process that we can move grief forward, we can move guilt forward, we can move anger forward, we can move the pain of not knowing what to do with ourselves day in, day out, we can move them forward too. And so tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to have a webinar that's going to talk about how to release guilt. It is a strategy. I did not make it up. I teach it, and it's very, very powerful. And so you can begin releasing guilt almost immediately. Is it magic? No. Does it work? Absolutely. One of the things that I love about working with people who are undergoing the grief process is being able to provide tools and strategies and things that work, things that move you forward. And so what I have to help release guilt is very, very powerful. So I want to invite you, drop a comment below if you don't know where it is. You can jump into my Facebook group that's got grief, move forward and be inspired. There's an event in there where you can get it. You can go to my Grief Inspired Community on the School platform, SKOOL. You can find it there, but just drop a comment. I'll make sure that you get it. You can email me at griefinspired@gmail.com. I'll make sure you get it there too. But the point is that we don't want to stay stuck in grief. We want to move forward. We want to learn tools and strategies that are going to help us in the day-to-day, because this is something that you have to carry. But the idea is to be able to release the victim mindset that so often happens. We can feel victim to our grief. And one of the things for me, I mean, this was a week after I lost my son, and I showed up at a support group, and the woman that was running it was devastated by her loss. And it had been 5 years earlier, and she proceeded, I'm sure you might have heard this story before, but she lit a candle on a birthday cake for her son who had died 5 years earlier. And she was weeping, and there were tears streaming down her face. And she did me a favor in that moment. Because in that moment, I said, I don't want to be victim to my grief like that. I said, I will figure this grief thing out. I will figure out how to move forward. I will figure out how to embrace the future that I have. And I had no idea how I was about to do it. And honestly, it takes a while before you want to embrace the future at all. But when you get to the point where you say, I am ready for something more, it requires courage and it requires bravery to ask for support. So many people don't ask for support because we think we should just be able to do it on our own. And let me just tell you something, asking for support is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. And I'll tell you what, the people who do ask for support, the people who do get support are the ones who are the smart ones. They're the ones who get it. They understand that grief is an education. It's something you have to learn how to do. You can learn it on your own, absolutely. But if you have a community of people, it gets even better. So we want to release the victim mindset, and we want to figure out how to move forward. And that is what I do here at Grief Inspired, is find ways. And I love talking to all of you. So thank you for posting comments here. Let me know who it is that you've lost. And what I want to help you do, Caroline, is say, okay, how do we get you out of bed? How do we get you to look at life a little bit differently? And you can stay in the bed. You're allowed to. Right? You lost your son. Looks like you lost your husband too. Right. You have every right to stay in bed and be miserable. But what you can also do is you can make a difference, and you can say, I want something different. I want to figure this out. I want to move forward. And as you start to move forward, you become inspired. You become inspired to help yourself because you realize that you're worth it. You're inspired to share what you've learned with someone else who's grieving because now you know. Maybe you're inspired to do something new for yourself, to step out of your comfort zone and do something that feels uncomfortable. Maybe you're inspired to Ask for support when you don't want to. Maybe you're inspired to come to my guilt thing tomorrow night. It's my guilt thing. Listen to me. I'm like, it's a guilt thing. It's a webinar, 4 steps to release guilt. None of us are perfect here. It's not about that. It's about fundamentally at Grief Inspired, we believe that you are worthy and deserving of happiness. And you can stay stuck in your guilt and be sad and miserable for as long as you want. You have every right to. But when you want something different, when you want to move forward, when you want to be inspired to honor your loved one by embracing the future that is in front of you, that's power. That's where power lives. When you can look at your grief as something that is going to create the opportunity for you to be a certain type of person in the world that you are unfamiliar with, that is power. There is power in your grief. There is power in the pain. There's power in your sadness. You can be inspired to let go of the stuff that doesn't matter anymore. So many of you talk about people, they didn't show up for me. Yeah, you don't need those people in your life. But what you can be inspired to do, you can move forward from them. And you can be inspired to say, this is the type of relationship that I want in my life. I want to have deep, meaningful relationships with people who get it, with people who understand me, with people who aren't going to judge me for being less than perfect, because hello, we're all less than perfect. So I want your grief to help you move forward. Find what's next for you. Find the inspiration and the motivation that you need just to get out of bed. Because I can guarantee you, as you crawl your way out of bed, you can start to feel better. And I want to help with all of that. So thank you, Witchmaster General. Thank you, Squidney. Love that. Thank you so much for being an inspiration to other people. And I'll tell you what, when you run into somebody who knows grief, they show up differently in the world. They help people differently. They get it. And that's what I want to create for all of you, is a space where you can hang out with other people who get it, where we can talk for real, where we can share tools and ideas. You know, just as an example, there is a woman who writes these grief poems. Her first name is Yuli. I forget what her last name is. My clients have been posting in my Facebook groups a lot of her poems. They're magnificent. She is an inspiration. And these are tools, these are quotes that help us get through the day, that shift our perspective, that teach us things. And that's not something I brought to the group. That's something that the community brought to the group. And I find that so, so inspiring. So again, move yourself forward and then be inspired to help others. Be inspired to help yourself. Be inspired to learn something new, do something new, be something new. Grief will change you. There is no doubt about that. I am not the same person I was all of those years ago. But change is not a bad thing. As long as we're moving forward, as long as we're making progress, as long as we're growing, that is a good thing. It is our struggles that turn us into who we are supposed to be. So yes, you have to carry this grief with you, but I promise you that if you let it, grief will transform you and allow you to become more of who you are meant to be. And it will help with the impact that you have on the world. Maybe it's just with your family. Maybe it's with your friends. Maybe it's with a stranger who you see as grieving too, and you show up for them. There's so much about grief that can inspire us. We can let it take us out of the game, or we can let it inspire us. We can do it alone, or we can do it in community. It's up to you. I'm so excited that you guys are all here. I want to thank you for watching. I want to invite you to leave comments, ask questions, come over to the Grief Inspired community in the school platform. Hang out with us there. Share what you've learned. coaching and just be part of a group of people who are strong, courageous, brave, massive hearts, who are just good people who are working to navigate this life of loss. Let's move forward and be inspired.